minister, you're an educator, so many hats. You're a financial advisor, there's so many things. What's one piece of advice you give to that young person who's trying to follow your path?
Never give up. Whatever it is in your heart that you're trying to do or trying to accomplish, never give up. Always believe in yourself. Mm-hmm. And speak well of yourself. A lot of times we speak down. Speak well of yourself. I can do this. I can make it through this. I want my gifts to bless the world. And walk in humility and righteousness. And keep the faith.
Yeah.
A.P. Yeah. They Mr. Owe me like Aaron, what happened? I can't go backwards, this my new chapter. Move to Atlanta, them trappers and scammers. I pray for my youngins, you talking about practice? On the track, I go ape like bananas.
Peace, beautiful family. This is Dr. Walter Hidalgo, and this is the Know Thy Shelf podcast. The Know Thy Shelf podcast utilizes the metaphor of the shelf in order to extrapolate the self. And the way we do that is we invite guests to share something about themselves. And before I introduce my guests, I just want to give a couple of things in the agenda. First thing, check out the website, www.knowthyshelf.tv, where you can find information on the book, workshops, coaching, a plethora of things. Definitely check it out. The other thing we always do is we always like to give a shout out to a group of individuals. And today, I want to give a big shout out to all of my Midwest family. Specifically, Chi-Town. I want to give a big shout out to all of my jazz lovers. I always say that if you believe the Lord is going to come down in clouds to save us, if that is true, I believe He's going to be playing jazz. I want to give a big shout out to all my educators, and all of its different variations, whether you're homeschooling, whether you're teaching in the classroom, or you're just preparing to write that special book you've been waiting on. Make it happen. Shout out to anybody that's doing their PhD. Serious stuff, man. We pray for you, and we need you, right? Because I got somebody here that I respect, I admire, I love, and I'm proud of. My brother from another, Millard Southern.
Thank you.
I know we vibing now, coming fresh, you know what I mean, from Newport Jazz Festival.
Exactly, it was exciting to do. We saw a lot of great artists. We saw traditional jazz, we saw swing, blues, hip hop, funk.
Ooh, it was. Listen, slow down. We're gonna get to that,
all right.
Because as we always do, I like to contextualize stuff. You know what I mean? If we were to step in time to a younger Mill, what would we see? What would we smell? What would we hear? Because you're originally from
Chicago.
Stand up, Chi-Town. Talk to us about growing up in Chicago, man, please.
Sure. Well, first I want to thank you, Dr. Hidalgo, for having me on your show. You are a blessing to our culture and to our world, and I count it a privilege to be on this show. So growing up in Chicago was complex. I grew up in an all-black neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. My dad and grandfather were Methodist ministers, African Methodist Episcopal denomination to be exact. And so I grew up in a household where spirituality was the core of how I was raised. And my spiritual formation was the black church, it was music, it was school, it was family, it was community, it was black Chicago. And so all of those different strands make up who I am. Intellectually, spiritually, socially, politically. And I think spirituality is just the basis of who I am. And it's integrated in everything that I do. And so I went to school in Chicago, then went to undergrad at Drake University in Des Moines, and then worked in finance. But then I took a turn and attended Union Theological Seminary, where we met.
That's right.
And developed a close intellectual bond. So my journey has been interesting. It has been complex. But nevertheless, it's a journey that is continuing to shape who I am.
Yeah, I want to dive deep because I'm very big on other places, geographical, typographical, culturally. You know, I would say Chi is my second favorite city, you know, after New York, right? No, respectfully, Chi-town, you know?
Yeah.
But when I went to the Chi, I fell in love. You know, I fell in love with the people, a culture. It reminded me of New York, you know, but it had an LA vibe. Like I say, it's like if LA and New York had a kid, Chicago is his name, you know, or her name.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit about Chi-town, you know, because it always gets the reputation of being, you know, a bad place, you know, like the whole Chirac term come, you know, the killing sprees of Chi-town, you know what I'm saying? Like what, and we were having these conversations, you know, like what is it in the air that makes Chicago kind of get that kind of reputation, even though as somebody that's lived there, maybe you see something that we don't.
Sure. Well, let me begin by saying Chicago has just a great history. It was founded by
a Haitian,
Jean-Baptiste Bouin. So, just beginning with history of Chicago, great leaders, great musicians, wonderful singers, politicians, ministers. A lot has come out of Chicago. But I think it has struggled and continued to struggle with, you know, meeting the needs of its citizens socially, culturally, politically, spiritually. But I think, as with a lot of cities in America, Chicago is just wrestling with, you know, different elements of its times right now. And I think, as in other cities, the main focus should be on educating young people, empowering young people, motivating and inspiring young people so that they can carry the torch and to keep running and to continue to fight and to struggle. And one of the things that we're seeing in the media is that young people don't have a lot of options. They are bombarded with a lot of negative images and things and situations. And so what we see on the media is just a lot of violence, a lot of carjacking, a lot of just negative criminal activity. But that's not our young people. I don't think that really defines our young people. You know, as in any other city or any environment, we have to give them a chance to grow and to learn and to empower them. And I think that's what Chicago is struggling with. I think that's what is missing, and that's what's needed.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to the Chi. What a special place. You know,
Sure
it is a gem, man. I want to switch gears a little bit because you did already mention it, and I think it's important. I know my brother Mill for a minute, yo. And we met at graduate school at Union Theological Seminary, shout out, in New York. And I've interviewed many of our peers, and I always say that the Walter before Union and the Walter after are two completely different human beings. You know? why did you go to Union? What did you study? And how are you wrestling with God during your time there, man?
Sure. So I went to Union because I wanted to further my intellectual activity in theology. And I wanted to study under Dr. James Cone.
Rest in peace and shout out.
Right. He is the foremost black theologian ever. You know, his work, his body of work, his literature really bears witness to just overcoming great odds and triumphing, resisting. And I think that's what his legacy, that's what he'll be known for. So that's what I wanted to study under him. He wrote a lot of great books, but The Spiritual and the Blues.
Oof, one of my faves,
Yeah.
So profound,
And so that's why I went to Union. And your second question is, what did I learn?
Yeah, what was your experience like, man? I mean, why, you're still stuck to financing. That's another, piece of who you are.
Yeah.
But I'm always fascinated by people who are so brilliant and intelligent. You could have been like a Fortune 500 CEO, but you took this route, man. Like where did this push, this calling? Was it a person? Was it a scripture?
I think for me, the calling to ministry was personal, and I think it has to be personal for you to kind of step outside of what you normally do and really sacrifice and really give of yourself to study and to learn. It has to be personal, but it's a personal relationship with God. And I think, understanding that and trying to wrestle with that further allowed me to pursue seminary. So my personal calling to do good in the community, and then to learn and to grow intellectually. I needed some time to be set aside to really read, to really study, to really kind of dig deeper in theological texts. And I think, primarily that's why we all go to seminary, just to, the curiosity, what is faith? How do we wrestle with faith in these times? Do we even need faith?
Oof.
Those are questions, larger questions that we wrestle with in seminary. So,
it's beautiful. I love hearing this because you mentioned our brother Dr. Cone. Rest in peace, shout out. And his famous words, you must find your voice. This is why we do this. And, I always tell people that my mom introduced me to God, Cone reintroduced me to God. How has Union informed your theology? This has always been our question. Never.
How has Union informed my theology?
Yeah.
Well, one of the most important things about Union is liberation theology.
That's right. Yes.
And I think that kind of facet of theology has informed my own thinking, my own way of understanding not only the world but faith. That liberation theology, the blues of the text, the struggle, the holler, the cry, the noisiness of Jeremiah, the chaos of Job, the kind of blues of Jesus crying from the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So that liberation theology, which is, the face of Union, that has informed my theology. And it's still important today. Liberation theology is still important today in many different facets.
Speak on it. And speaking on slight transition, but you've been giving me the alley-oop throughout our discussion, and that is, we just came from a quite amazing, euphoric, spiritual, communal, theological, sociological, psychological, anthropological, musicological experience at the Newport Jazz Festival. Shout out to the Newport Jazz Festival. 70 years. Maybe by the time this come out, it'll be 71. But the very fact that they're still around speaks to, you know, the footprint that jazz has left in our social cultural reality, man. I want you to kind of talk as if you're explaining this to a 2-year-old, right? If you can, so to speak. What is jazz? Give us, what is it? Where did it come from? Where's it going?
Wow. So what is jazz? And you want me to break it down?
Yeah, like what is jazz?
Jazz is your voice. You know, we're talking right now. You have your voice, I have my voice. You have your thoughts, I have my thoughts. You have your perspective, I have my perspective. That's what jazz music is. But we're exchanging ideas, we're talking, we're in conversation. Jazz is being in conversation. You have the saxophone, the trumpet, different various instruments, but they're always in conversation. And that's something important that we should never forget in our society. We should always be in conversation with each other. Black versus white, rich versus poor, Democrat versus Republican. And I think we lose that in our country of talking to one another and engaging one another. And another thing that we saw on stage where musicians had to listen. We need to stop and listen to one another and find out, you know, where people are coming from, what are they thinking, you know, and that's part of letting their voice be heard. So we have to listen. And I think that's one of the great things about jazz music is you're in conversation, you're listening, you're trying to be creative, you're trying to find new ideas, but at the end of the day, you're trying to sound good together as a group. And harmonize it. And that's something that we need in America, to harmonize together. You know, to embrace the tension, and not run away from it, but to be in conversation and make something beautiful out of the tension. That's what we need. Jazz music, your second question, jazz music comes from America. I think that's very important.
Yes, speak on that part. No.
It comes from America, not any other country. It was born and birthed in America. And that says something about not only the music itself, but about our country, that we created this music out of the pain of the blues, out of the cries of, you know, the field hollers and the gospel tunes, and then, you know, we went into ragtime, and then early swing and Dixieland jazz and bebop and cool, and to funk and to soul, and then, you know, the 80s and the 90s with the New Lions. So, you know, jazz has continued to develop over time. But we also need to know that, you know, jazz has a history. It didn't just come out of a vacuum. And so it allows us to embrace that history, but be in the present moment. We need to make music relevant and speak to the times, but also be forward thinking and be futuristic. So it's looking back, embracing the history, being in the moment, but also looking ahead and having a vision for the future, so that we can leave something for our kids.
I think this is so beautiful and important because it kind of eases our way through at this present moment as you're working toward your doctoral degree, without giving too much away, because obviously you're still trimming the hedges, but you know, a lot of the work that I did was on hip-hop and spirituality, but also looking at it from a social historical lens, because hip-hop was born in the U.S. too, and it's beautiful, man. And it comes from the black aesthetics, you know, a gift. The connection between jazz and theology, man. Jazz liberation theology, right? Like, I forget who said that jazz is very impromptu. It's very kind of like the freestyle of a rapper, you know. It's improvisational, you know. The church is in an interesting space, Mel, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because how can the theology of jazz help in the struggling church that we're currently at today?
How can the theology of jazz help
a struggling church today?
A struggling church today. Well, first off, we must remember that jazz, you know, it's a music. It's a musical form. And in the black church, we need music. We need music that touches the soul. Jazz music is, it comes out of the blues, it comes out of the spirituals, and the spirituals wade in the water, and Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. So jazz music has its roots in the spirituals, the blues, and the church. And that's the musical form, you know. Jazz music is not just about notes and rhythm and melody, but it has to speak to the hearts and minds of its people. Great jazz musicians like Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, and John Coltrane, they were playing a spiritual music that spoke to not only our times, but again, the heart and soul of the people that were listening to it. And so we should always keep that in mind as we study jazz music. And also, I think in a deeper sense, the spirituality of jazz music is about overcoming. When you listen to the great rhythms, when you listen to musicians who are in the moment and playing and swinging, there's a deep spiritual curiosity, a deep spiritual questioning and seeking. And I think as we discuss the church, that deep spiritual curiosity also must move us to ask questions about the church today. Like, for example, you know, what is the role of the church? Is spirituality still important? How do we continue to speak to the hearts and minds of people? How do we use music and creativity to move beyond the boundaries of race and religion and doctrine and really bring people together? The theology of jazz is about community. How can we continue to embrace a community of differences, of people who are unlike each other but have a shared struggle? So I think the kind of musical form of jazz, the spiritual understanding of jazz, the history of jazz has something deep to really show the church and to tell the church. And jazz music is directly related just to the upbringing of the church in America.
I love it. We're going to switch it up. And as we always do in the Know Thyself show, we invite guests to share something from their show. Millard, what you sharing for us today, yo?
Sure. What in my house, I always have a candle, and I love candles because in the midst of darkness, in a dark room, when you light a candle, it lights up the room, and it continues to burn. It continues to light the way, and we are the light of the world, and we must continue to be a light in dark times. And so the candle just represents resilience. It represents determination. It represents life and light. And to me, a candle says, let your light shine.
Because as the song says, this little light of mine,
I'm gonna let it shine. Exactly.
And we have the divine spark in us, man.
We do.
And I constantly always remind that to the young folk, man, you got the divine spark in your soul, man. And speaking of that, man, because, we got, I think this is important. Can you talk briefly, because one major hat that you wear, and obviously we've been throwing the words theology around and religion and church, etc. So clearly we come from, that background, but we also come from a ministry background. And as someone once said, what is ministry? Ministry is church in action, right? And you are a minister, an ordained minister. Again, a lot of moving parts and things that are happening right now in faith, the church. Is there anything that you want to say in that regard that you think that, as someone that's from the inside, looking out, as opposed to an outsider giving commentary of what they think they see in the inside?
Well, I think one of the things we must remember in these times is how leadership is very important, not only in the church but outside the church. But leadership with integrity, leadership with vision, leadership that will speak truth to power. And that's what we need. We need the type of godly leadership that will lead people in the right direction. And this is what our country needs. Our world. This is what our world needs. We must be a church outside of the four walls.
Yes.
We can't continue to just stay in the four walls of the church building and continue to do business as usual. Liberation must happen outside of the four walls of the church. And that's one thing that, I would say as a faith leader. And bringing people together with all the divisiveness that we see in our country today, the back and forth, the petty disagreements, bringing people together across racial, cultural, and ethnic lines is so critical for us today. And I think, if anything, spiritual leaders must be on the forefront of doing that. That's spiritual leaders who are over congregations, are over people's lives. We've got to bring people together in our community.
I couldn't agree more, and that's why I always ask guests, somewhere out in the world there's a young Millard in the making, a young one who's trying to figure it out. You're a minister, you're an educator, so many hats. You're a financial advisor. There's so many things. What's one piece of advice you give to that young person who's trying to follow your path?
Never give up. Whatever it is in your heart that you're trying to do or trying to accomplish, never give up. Always believe in yourself. And speak well of yourself. A lot of times we speak down. Speak well of yourself. I can do this. I can make it through this. I want my gifts to bless the world. And walk in humility and righteousness. And keep the faith.
Yeah. Nori and the Dream Champs podcast, shout out, yo. He always says we got to give flowers to people while they're still alive. I want to give you your flowers, my brother. Your roses.
Thank you.
Your dandelions. Your tulips. You know, because I'm proud of you, man.
Thank
you know, and I love you.
Love you too.
And it's so dope what you're doing, you know, and so important. And this is why we do this, my brother. As we always do in the Know That Show, we end with a quote. And this one comes to us from William James. And it reads as such. Action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action. Peace, family.
That was great.
Chi-Town, stand up.
That was great.
Yeah.